Hi everyone. Someone emailed me about asking for clarification on how I use Word for my manuscripts. A lot of people seem to prefer Scrivener, and I admit I have tried to use it several times, but I find that Word is far more flexible and easier to use. There are a lot of shortcuts and things that I can use with Word, including one of the things with Scrivener, of course, is that you have to compile to Word to export it for other programs, whereas Word, you're already there, so there is no exporting. And if you use styles, which I'll get into in a minute, it makes life a lot easier. I can, maybe in a later post, I will show you how I convert Word using Juto to create the best flawless, error-free EPUBs and MOBI files. But for now, let's just have a look at Word itself. So I just wanted to show you, to begin with, this is the blank version of my template that I use for writing manuscripts. As you can see, it's got absolutely minimal information in it, including if you use styles at all, you may notice that here there are very, very few of them. Particularly when you're compiling it and uploading to Juto, and Smashwords in particular are very, very sensitive about too many styles in a document. So if you have a look here, you'll see that there is only the styles that come basic. Everything else has been stripped out, which helps with the compiling. So primarily, here's the major features of it. This is the chapter headings, which are actually, you can see up here where it's highlighted, they're header 1 styles. Heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, these are universal styles that nearly every program recognizes. As long as you put your chapters in chapter 1 heading, the styling should carry over to Juto and other programs, which makes life very convenient. The other advantage to using chapter 1 for a style here is that it shows up in the navigation pane over here. This navigation pane that makes life very, very comfortable. I'll get to this one in a minute, but for right now, the other thing is the chapter 1, you can see here, has got space above and space below. I do not put in, now if I show my codes here, as you can see, there's not lots of blank lines everywhere. There's one up here, and everything else is spaced out according to styles. So let me just show you very quickly. If you go into here, line spacing options, you'll see that there is 42 points before and 42 points after the line. So if I just shut that down, you can make that anything you want, but this is the spacing that I prefer for my books. As you can see, it's almost even. That just puts a little bit of space between there and the first line, which is here. I put here there simply to show where it is, and I don't have to search around for it. This here is, if you look down, oops, it's not going to show that, but it is heading 2, and that shows up here. And there is a good reason for doing that later on, but basically, as I'm working through the manuscript, whichever chapter this is, I'll do chapter 3, and I aim for approximately 12 pages per chapter. So if chapter 2 finishes on page 48, I will do page 50 for chapter 3. And because I'm writing it there, it shows up here, so I always know with just a glance when the chapter should end. Now the other factor here is this one, which is just a divider. I call it my working point. It's where I'm up to right now. It's also heading 1. It also shows up here. So no matter where I am in the manuscript, I can jump instantly to where I last left off just by clicking on that. And there I am. I'm right where I should be. And this is where, once I've done my outline and all my plotting, I drop it in below there. So this is the basic template. I just save it as a Word file and then copy it when I need it for a new book. Now I'll show you, this is a book that's actually in progress. Actually, it's not. I've finished this book, but this is one of the backup copies. Every couple of days or so, I'll create a copy of the manuscript and dump it into an archive folder so that if a disaster happens and I lose my current manuscript, I will still have a backup, and hopefully not too many chapters have disappeared that I have to rewrite. Do I speak from experience? Oh yes, unfortunately I do. So let me just walk you through this one again. Now you can see this is how the file will open in Word. And now, do you see where this divider working point is now so much more useful, because all you have to do is click on it. This is where the navigation pane comes into its own. You can see exactly where you are in the manuscript, and you've got all your outline below. And I use headings for outlines too. But here we are in the manuscript up here. That's where I finished off writing. That's where the next chapter should start, approximately. I don't always hit that point. Sometimes I'm shorter and sometimes I'm longer. And then underneath there, I've got my outline, which goes to the end of the book. When I start writing, because that is the next scene in the book. Now, you can't see me do this on the screen, but I just highlighted it. And actually, I don't even have to highlight it. I just have to put the cursor in it. And then I hold the Control-Alt keys. Sorry, that should be the Shift-Alt keys, and use the arrow key, up and down arrow keys, and I just move it up there. So now I know exactly what should be in the scene that I'm currently writing, because it's right there, just below where I should be writing. And that sets me up for my work for the day. And then when I finish that bit, I can come back down again, grab the next bit, and away I go. So one of the things I do too is when I come to start for the day, if I'm being particularly precise about my word counts, I will put the time here. And then when I finish, I can put, and then it's very easy. I've got an exact count of what time I actually spent writing. If you find you get interrupted a lot, this is a good way of keeping track of exactly how many minutes you're spending on writing, as opposed to what you have scheduled for yourself, and you can tell that you need to do something about your interruptions if there is a very big difference between the two. One of the things I also want to show you is when I'm writing, once I get to, let's say this is the end of a scene, I'm not sure if it is or not, but let's say it is. This is a hack that you might find useful. I simply type in new, and I hit F3, the F3 button, and there. Now I have my asterisk break already set in with the spacing and a cue on where to start. And away you go. The other shortcut that I have built into this is if I do chapter, you can see it already popping up already. Hit that, it inserts, so if I show my codes here, it inserts a page break, a line, the chapter, and the first line here. And then I just put in chapter 19, which we can tell is the next one over here. And then down here, I'll put, this should be, I'll just turn my codes off because they get confusing if you're not used to them. chapter 20, which we are currently on. If you look down here, page 235. So 12 is 247. So we just 247, and now you can see that's showing up here. So an instant guide. The other thing I have in here too, not as hacks, not as shortcuts, but if we go back to here to our styles, you can see I have a byline. Which you can insert that way, or if you forget that you've got the style there temporarily, you can just, this is a byline, highlight it, and then just hit byline, and it converts it and puts the necessary spaces in instead of the blank lines. And that is because it is a style, will transfer over to. This one up here is also a style. It's called the asterisk style. And I did it that way so that it puts the spacing above and below, and you don't have to put in blank lines. Now, how you create these is very, very simple. What you do is you start with, let's say, chapter 1, 2, 3, and I am going to, this is the best way to do it if you're doing it, is you go into your styles, find header 1. Now mine is already like the chapter, the heading 1 there, it's already preset, but let's say that chapter 1, heading 1 looks something like, it can be, the standards can be just awful. Quite often they're left aligned and the spacing is all over the place. So what you do is you type in chapter 1, you change it to heading 1, and then what you want to do is, now we want that to be automatic. This is very important for formatting, especially if you're uploading Word files instead of formatted EPUBs. Make sure that the color for your font is always automatic. Then you want to center it. You want to make sure that it is size 18, and you want the font to be the same as your text, just to keep things simple. Make sure that the spacing for the paragraph is at 1, so it's one line, and then add in, make sure that your spacing before and after is where you want it. If it is, you hit OK. Then once you've got your heading 1 style looking exactly like the chapter headings that you want, you right click, you go up to here and you right click, and then you update heading 1 to match the selection. And that's it. Now every time you have text, if you highlight it and change it to heading 1, it will be formatted correctly. Then how you set up the style after that is, let's say we want, well, we're going to have to turn on codes again for a second. So now we've just got to the end of our text here and we want a chapter break. So what we do is return, and then we put in a page break. I usually use keyboards, but keyboard shortcuts, but I'll use the menu for now so that you can see it. We have our chapter there, and then after the chapter, now this is the first line here. As you can see, first line is not indented, but it's simple enough. You get your text, which is, this is text, it's indented. It's separate from, now let me just show you the body here. First lines of chapters I do not indent. Most of the book publishers will obey that styling. Some of them won't, they'll indent regardless because they seem to think that they know better than you. But never mind. If your style is there and says don't indent, most of them will obey that. Then the rest of the guts of your manuscript is text. So This one is first line, and this one is text. And there is a trick to that, so you never have to think about it when you're typing. Let me show you. So here we've got first line. If you go into, now the quickest way is to modify. If you go into modify here, that lets you look at the details. And if you look at that, the name of it is first line. It is a paragraph thing. Now here's the trick. Style for the following paragraph is text, which is what I want to follow. Usually when you set up a style, if you go into it, it will just have its own style as the next one, but you can change it and just hit OK. And then, so you finish the first paragraph, and then when you hit return, this is text for the second paragraph, and it's indented. It is not a tab, which everyone universally hates tab marks. You should not tab. It should be indented here. This is your first line indent. You can also set up your first line indent. Okay, here. So first line by 0.5. And at the moment, you'll also notice that my text is double spaced. This is because, well, partly because I'm very old-fashioned and learned to write manuscripts the old way, but it makes it a lot easier to read and proof in double spacing. When I cut and paste this draft manuscript into my final Word manuscript, my master file, for importing into Eduto, the master file has all the front and end matter, and I cut and paste this into it. The styles that exist in that master manuscript have all the styling associated with them, so text will become single spaced, and so will the first line, and so on and so forth. So the styles will adjust, they will transfer over and just take on the styling of that document instead of this one, which makes, again, life very simple because I don't have to go in and single space everything. It just does it automatically. Now, I was going to show you a couple of hacks. I showed you that. Now, we set up, let's say, this is how you set up the shortcuts. You put in exactly what you want in your shortcut. Now, originally that was here, and we want first line. We make sure everything's right, so we've got the page break, we've got the one blank line, the heading there, and here. Now you highlight all of it, everything that you want in the shortcut, and then you can't see me do this, but I'm hitting Alt 3, and it thinks about it for a second. Now create a new building block. Building blocks get saved in the normal template, or you can tell them to save it in building blocks. I do both just because I copy it twice. You give it a name. In this case, I call it chapter, and you just hit OK. And because I've already saved it, it's already in this template, in this document. It's asking me if I want to redefine it, replace it. So yes, I do. And then it'll put it away. Now I just highlight very quickly, hit Alt 3 again, chapter, and then I'm going to save it in the normal template. Yes. And there we go. It's saved. So if I turn off my codes, and as soon as you start typing the word, it says, oh, there's a shortcut. Is this what you want? And then you just hit enter. Or if you find sometimes it misses, if you type too fast, you don't see it pop up, so you just hit F3 and it'll insert it anyway as soon as you put the full name in. You do exactly the same thing with your scene breaks, and there you are, you've got shortcuts so that you don't have to stop and format and fidget and stuff like that in the middle of your flow. So just delete all this. Now, one of the things that I did want to talk about, this is very basic, what I was talking about, using X's so that you can leave notes for yourself. Now, I'm up here in the navigation pane. If I type in 1, 2, 3 X's, look at that. All my notes pop up. There's a triple X there, and I can go through, and these are notes to myself and blanks that I didn't want to fill in. There's here, I need to find a book title that was published in 1872. There I needed to look up a map and find out what street the house was on. These are things I can look up. They're not going to affect the actual writing of the manuscript, the story itself, but I can check them later. And more of it there, and so on and so forth. And as you can see in the navigation pane, when you search for your triple X's, they all pop up, and then you can just navigate from one to the next, and so on and so forth. So once you've finished your first draft, you can go through and just do a cleanup of all your X's, and that covers all the fact checking and notes to yourself that you wrote on the way through. So I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, of course, leave them in comments, and I can always do another one of these. But in the meantime, see if that helps with your writing, makes it a little bit faster for you.